Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today I'm going to attempt to answer the age-old question. Is it worth getting into X game in Y year? Now, specifically, as you can probably tell by clicking on the video, we're going to be talking about Tom Clancy's The Division 2 in 2025. I have been getting asked this question a lot in the recent weeks, largely driven by the imminent release of the game's new DLC, Battle for Brooklyn. The uptick in marketing for it has caused quite a few heads to turn, both those who played the game years ago but have been out of the loop since, and those who have never played The Division before and are now interested. Regardless of which camp you may be in, it always loops back to that one central question: is it worth it? Now, personally, I find this to be a very hard question to answer, because what someone's criteria is for worth in video games could be entirely different from the next person. Is it worth my money? Is it worth my time? Is it fun? Is it grindy? Right? There's endless things people may mean or want to hear about when wondering if a game is worth it to them. So, all of that being said, in this video, I've decided to aim for a very simple objective. I'm going to lay out where The Division 2 is at in 2025, talk about some of the road that it's taken to get here, and go over some of the most noteworthy pros and cons I think it has, in order to try and give you all the most well-rounded and informed perspective that I can, as someone who has not stopped playing the game since it was released in 2019. It's a tall order, one that I'm going to try and accomplish as concisely as I can, so hopefully that all sounds good. Let's get right to it. So, a brief overview for those who may not know. The Division 2 is a third-person RPG looter-shooter, where you shoot bad guys, collect shiny loot, make fun loadouts with said loot, and go shoot more bad guys. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the formula. Fortunately, after years of updates and content released, there are a lot of different modes and methods that the game offers you to shoot said bad guys. The Division 2 has a vast open world filled with challenges, secrets, and loot. There's a plethora of dedicated campaign and story missions. You've got more specialized game modes like the Summit's 100 floors of randomized layouts and enemy compositions. Descent is a roguelite experience baked right into the larger game. There's PvP modes, raid and dungeon-like content. Trust me when I say you'll have more than enough to sink your teeth into. Now, The Division 2 is a live service game through and through, and it's heading into its 7th year of post-launch support. For some people, that might raise an eyebrow or bring up other concerns. Let's address a couple of things here right off the bat. If you're somebody who likes to have a little reassurance in this modern gaming age, with the industry setting records for how quickly games are shut down these days, like the infamous story of Concord, new live service titles seem to come and go every single week. One nice thing about The Division 2 is that it is a proven commodity. It's not the largest looter shooter out there on the market, nor the most successful one. However, it's gone through its growing pains, and it's here to stay for better or worse. Yes, the fanbase has a track record of riding the "we're so back, wow, the game is dead" roller coaster at the slightest nudge in either direction, but objectively the game has a reliable player base. In fact, it's been steadily rising in the recent months, which has been fun to see. The community, which has its good and bad sides as all live games do, is unquestionably a very supportive one, with people frequently going out of their way to help newer players in-game. There's even a built-in feature for this called shepherding. There's online resources like item spreadsheets, groups that jump on weekly to help newer agents through some of the game's tougher content like raids, and then of course there's the development team, which, while smaller than some of its competitor titles, we'll come back to this, is very committed to keeping the game and its community thriving as best they can. My point is, The Division 2 is not a game where you need to worry about a lack of players or the absence of a dedicated community, or worst of all, having to worry about the game getting cancelled out of nowhere. Realistically, the only thing that is going to kill The Division 2 is The Division 3, but that is still several years away from releasing. Let's circle back to what I mentioned a moment ago about the game's development team. You likely wouldn't know it, but The Division 2 has been on a pretty remarkable journey behind the scenes since its release. I'll give you the shortened version of the story, but essentially the devs who originally made the game were all sent off to go and work on other projects in 2020 after the release of the game's Warlords of New York expansion. Reason being, the original plan was to sunset The Division 2 after its Year 2 roadmap, but a few franchise veterans at Massive Entertainment banded together and made a pitch to keep things going. Somehow it got the green light, and so the game then proceeded to go through a 15-month content drought while a new dev team was assembled, new content was made from scratch, and in 2022, much like the franchise's iconic Phoenix symbolism, the game rose from the ashes to begin a new chapter. For most live games, a lapse in updates like that for so long would have killed interest and retention, but the Division community is nothing if not stubborn. This rebuilding of things does mean that the game's team and resources is smaller than other titles you might be familiar with, like Destiny or Warframe. On average, the amount of new content they're able to produce per year is less than other competitors, but, ironic for the timing of this video, the fact that a new DLC is releasing in less than 2 weeks, more than 5 years after the last large-scale release with Warlords of New York, is very telling, I believe, for the passion and commitment that the team has to support the game as best they can. And even though this means that not every new update for the game comes with huge new pieces of content or a new feature, The Division 2 does indeed receive regular seasonal updates, including new storylines, new rare loot to chase, and frequent quality of life improvements. Speaking of content releases and update sizes, let's talk value proposition. As I know, for many people, they simply want to know if their money and time investment will yield a satisfactory and memorable gameplay experience. As a brand new player, I believe The Division 2 offers an incredible amount of content. The base game is listed at $30 USD, and one of the major revamps the team implemented in the last year of content was to make it so that regardless of what add-ons and DLC you may own, all Division 2 players are able to progress to the endgame and play alongside everybody else. That's right, all DLC for The Division 2 is completely optional. Owning those things of course offers you more content and some exclusive goodies, but you do not need anything other than the base game itself to get the full Division 2 experience. And I think that is a pretty player-forward initiative that the team took. Speaking of which, I know another big question for many is how games in this genre handle their revenue and in-game monetization. Well, it's my view that The Division 2 is about as non-predatory as you can get for a premium live service model like it has. As stated, the game has an upfront cost. DLCs and expansions are paid, but optional. But beyond that, all other microtransactions are cosmetic rooted. There's an in-game store with outfits and skins, and then season passes have a paid premium track. These offer additional cosmetics and things like a few extra loot crates, but they hold nothing exclusive in terms of gameplay. All new items that are released each new season are housed on the free portion of the season pass. And furthermore, all of the Division 2's major updates, new game modes, things like that, are entirely free and available for all. Of course, this excludes dedicated DLC releases like Battle for Brooklyn that we've got coming up, but I cannot stress how abnormal that is for our game in recent times. Talking about the DLC, Battle for Brooklyn's release on May 27th comes alongside the free Year 7 Season 1 update, which, as the name implies, is the kickoff for Year 7 of the game. The developers have laid out a rough roadmap on their plans for this year of content, and I figured that recapping that and talking about the state of the game's content overall may prove useful for all of you watching. After the huge package of new content coming with the DLC in Season 1, the devs have outlined a combination of core revamps and new features to fill out the rest of their year's plan. For one, they want to strengthen the game's onboarding process, making it a smoother experience for new players to jump in and comprehend all that the game has to offer. They also want to do a pass on the in-game economy and progression, looking at the balance between grind and reward, as well as deepening the options we have for customizing our gear. They want to deepen the variety and offerings of each season, given they're the cornerstone to the game's content model nowadays. And then finally, they talked about introducing a new feature to the game's open world, which would allow it to more dynamically react to your actions within it, potentially increasing the kinds of encounters you'll find and the challenge of it all. So broadly, that is about what you can expect in terms of updates that the Division 2 puts out in a year's worth of time. That said, I also think it's very important to point out the shortcomings of this current development model, or if not shortcomings, then really just talk about what the reality of playing a game is these days with a development team that is significantly smaller than the one that originally built it. For one, there is a lot of forgotten content in the Division 2, stuff that served a purpose and had a place at one point in time, but has simply slipped through the cracks in the recent years or just hasn't quite been given the amount of attention that it may deserve. A few examples: PvP is a big one. While we at one time had a dedicated PvP team, they were moved off of the project years ago. This has led to many stagnations of the meta and a lack of regular balancing passes, and us receiving no significant content for that side of the game in a long time. There's things like a hardcore mode that has been in beta status for years. There's a game mode known as Kenley College that, despite nearly the entirety of the player base unifying and saying that it is boring and outdated, it remains as is, collecting cobwebs. There's also then another part to this where we simply don't get a lot of updates or features that would otherwise seem like no-brainers. At the top of that list, the Division 2 unfortunately does not have crossplay or cross-progression. That's a big question I get all the time. There's also a definite lack in frequency of us receiving new locations to visit and explore. Obviously, we do get them, with the Brooklyn DLC releasing this month, but the consistency can be few and far between. Now, to be clear, all of what I just laid out is not from a lack of care or passion from the team. It's simply the reality of what happens when a small development team is charged with the gargantuan task of supporting what is meant to be an ever-evolving, live service looter shooter. And again, the Division 2 is in a unique position of being supported by a team that didn't create and code the base game, an issue that has been cited as one of the roadblocks to us getting things like crossplay. So, again, just something that I think is important to be aware of for someone who may be considering getting into the Division 2. But I believe that just about wraps up my thoughts on trying to answer what is really the unanswerable question of if this game is worth it. I could go on all day about gameplay, certain features I like, what I think should be changed, what sorts of controversies are Bob and Timmy raging about on Reddit this week. I'm kidding, of course. Point is, it is a loaded question, and while I'm sure I didn't answer absolutely everything, I hope this video helps pierce the veil and give you somewhat of an idea about the Division 2 in 2025. If after watching this video you do end up deciding to give the Division 2 a try, I do have an ultimate beginner and returning player guide that I put together a few months ago. A lot of people who have checked that out, you can read the comments on there for yourself, say that it helped them in getting their footing when starting off. So, in case you're interested in that resource, I'll link it in the description below. Additionally, in case you're more interested in this new DLC, Battle for Brooklyn, that I mentioned a few times throughout the video, I've also got a video deep diving into everything you could hope to know on that. I actually got to travel to the development studio recently in order to go hands-on with it. So, again, that'll be linked below if you're interested. That's most of what I've got. I hope the video helped out. If it did, and you want to stay in the loop with all things Division 2 moving forward, I'll have a ton of content coming out over these next few weeks for the DLC's release. Then I hope you'll consider subscribing. We'd love to have you around. That's it for me, though. I look forward to hopefully seeing some of you agents out there in the field. But until then, thank you so much for watching. RogueGold. Ow.